Creepypastas have been on the internet for a very long time. Whether you remember Slenderman back in 2009, or maybe you might be new to this and only heard of newer creepypastas like the Backrooms, this Halloween special will cover all creepypastas. Before I start this video, the iceberg that I'm gonna be using is made by u/Skeletorium, so shout out to him. Jeff the Killer. Jeff the Killer is basically the poster child of early 2010s internet horror. This image is the most popular of him, and it originated all the way back in 2008 by a user named Thesher on DeviantArt. However, the character only became popular in 2011 thanks to GamerFuel TV. There's many versions of Jeff the Killer's story, but the most popular one was that Jeff was this normal dude who got bullied, snapped one day, went on a murder spree, carved a smile into his face, cut off his eyelids, and would always whisper the phrase, "go to sleep," before killing his victim. Squidward Suicide. This is one of those cursed creepypastas that haunted early YouTube and 4chan during 2008. The story of this creepypasta claims that a lost SpongeBob SquarePants episode surfaced on TV where Squidward slowly loses his mind before ending himself with a shotgun. I literally can't show this on YouTube because it might get the video down, so all you're getting is this blurred picture. Play with me. This creepypasta originated from a story created by Lamishimish around 2012. The story itself is quite long. I'll try my best to summarize it. It basically follows a girl named Sally who was abused by her uncle named John. One day, Sally told her friends about this abuse and they gave her support and told her to tell her parents. On her 12th birthday, Johnny took her to supposedly get ice cream, but in reality he ended up killing her in the woods. Later, her body was found and Johnny was sent to life in prison after confessing to the crime. The tragedy left Sally's mom, Mary, completely depressed, which led her to a mental decline. However, the spirit of Sally did not go to the afterlife and instead began haunting the house she lived in, scaring away all the people that moved into the house. Laughing Jack. Laughing Jack is one of those creepy clown characters like Pennywise and Art the Clown. The creepypasta originated on DeviantArt back in 2013, and he is first portrayed as this colorful, playful guardian angel for a lonely boy named Isaac Grossman in the 1800s. When Isaac was sent to a boarding school because his parents didn't like he was having an imaginary friend, Jack became confined in his jack-in-the-box where his colors faded over the years. After Isaac returned as a young adult, Jack was finally released and he killed Isaac for abandoning him. Laughing Jack went on continuing to seek out only children to be his new friend, but it always ends with the children dying. The Russian Sleep Experiment. The Russian Sleep Experiment is a famous creepypasta that is so well written to the point many people thought it was real, even though it's a fictional horror story. Basically, a bunch of Soviet scientists locked up 5 prisoners in a chamber, pumped in a special gas to keep them awake for 15 days straight, and then all hell breaks loose as the subjects go mentally insane. They began mutilating themselves and said they no longer wanted to be freed and that they just wanted more of this special gas that they were getting. All subjects died at the end of the experiment, and one of the subjects' last words was, "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." Sonic.exe. This creepypasta originated in 2011 and it's about an entity that takes the form of Sonic, makes the world turn into hell, and tortures its victims before robbing them of their souls. Nowadays though, Sonic.exe is more known for funk rather than a creepypasta. Herobrine. If you play Minecraft, you should definitely know who this is. If not, Herobrine originated as creepypasta within the Minecraft community around early 2010. He first appeared in a short post by an anonymous user claiming that a mysterious figure with glowing white eyes had been spotted in his world. This said figure was making strange structures and haunting them from afar. The most popular version of Herobrine's backstory is that it's not just dead brother or dead best friend wandering around as a ghost in the game. Mojang has repeatedly said that Herobrine has never existed in any official version of the game, but the legend still exploded online, fueled with fan-made videos, mods, and stories. Herobrine even appeared in the Minecraft movie, which wasn't even intentionally done because the production team said the white eyes were a visual glitch. Dead Bark. The Dead Bart creepypasta originated in the early 2010s, and it comes from a story about a lost episode of The Simpsons that is allegedly written by Matt Groening, aka the creator of The Simpsons show. It depicted Bart's death after falling off an airplane, and it was so disturbing that they decided not to air it on TV. The creepypasta also claims that everyone affiliated with the show still refuses to acknowledge the lost episode. Slenderman. Slenderman is without a doubt the most famous creepypasta of all time. Slenderman first appeared in 2009 on the Something Awful forums as part of a Photoshop contest where people were challenged to create paranormal images. One user submitted the now iconic Slenderman character, and eventually the myth grew through stories, games, and videos portraying Slenderman as an evil entity who abducts or manipulates little children. Despite being entirely fictional, it did cause a literal crime incident where two girls stabbed their friend to prove Slenderman was real. Jane the Killer. Jane the Killer originated shortly after Jeff the Killer became famous. She is portrayed as Jeff's arch nemesis, and she wants to kill Jeff because he killed her parents. Unlike Jeff's catchphrase of "go to sleep," her catchphrase is "don't go to sleep, you won't wake up." Jane herself isn't inherently evil, she only goes after other serial killers or criminals to prevent them from hurting innocent people. And no, Jane and Jeff are not a couple. That is fanfiction propaganda. The Backrooms. The Backrooms is a recent creepypasta that originated in 2019 on 4chan, describing an endless labyrinth liminal space containing yellow walls, fluorescent lights, a damp carpet, a musty smell, and a creature known as the life form that will try to kill you. There is no way for you to plan out how to enter the Backrooms because the way you enter it is by accidentally no-clipping out of reality. The Backrooms became popular in early 2022 after people expanded the lore and added more levels with their own creatures that reside in it. Ayuwoki. This creepypasta dates back all the way to 2009, and it's a horror parody of Michael Jackson. Not much is known about it because it's more of a meme than a creepypasta. Eyeless Jack. Eyeless Jack is a creepypasta character that originated around 2008 to 2009. He is depicted as a humanoid figure wearing a dark hoodie and a blue mask with hollow black eye sockets that are sometimes leaking dark black fluid. According to the canon story of Eyeless Jack, he was once a regular 19-year-old college student that was used by a cult as a human sacrifice. His eyes got removed and a liquid mixture of hot tar and blood got poured into his sockets. The sacrifice failed though, and ended with Jack turning into a monster that eats people's organs. Momo. Originally, Momo was created by Keisuke Aso Aisawa in the summer of 2016, and it wasn't called Momo at first. It actually had two names, Iceberg and Tigerbird. However, around 2018 to 2019 came the Momo Challenge, where a bunch of people would come up in Momo accounts and began DMing minors on the internet to do dangerous tasks such as self-harm and even suicide. Ben Drowned. Ben Drowned is a creepypasta character who originated in 2010. He's the spirit of a boy named Ben who drowned to death, but his spirit went on to a copy of the game. When you play this cursed copy, the game would seem normal at first, but then it would increasingly get more disturbing the longer you play it. The in-game character Link would start doing its own things instead of you controlling it, and messages appeared on screen saying things like, "You're going to die." SCP Foundation. The SCP Foundation is its own entire universe. In fact, I could make another iceberg video just talking about all the SCPs alone. The SCP Foundation is basically the secret government organization where they focus on securing, containing, and protecting things like cursed objects, supernatural entities, and deadly diseases so that they don't go around roaming freely in public, causing chaos. Candle Cove. Candle Cove is an online creepypasta horror story written by web cartoonist and author Chris Straub. It originated in 2009, and it's basically this fictional online forum talking about a bizarre children's show. It was initially published on Straub's website, but it later spread to other online communities like the Creepypasta Wiki. No End House. No End House is also a creepypasta horror story just like Candle Cove. The difference is it revolves around a young man who stupidly accepted a challenge to make his way through an endless haunted house for $500. Spoiler, he did not meet it out. The Expressionless. The Expressionless is a creepypasta that originated in the early 2010s, telling the story of a mysterious inhuman woman who appeared at a hospital in 1972. She was described to be eerily beautiful, yet uncanny, pale, mannequin-like skin, no eyebrows, and a mouth speared with lots of blood. Most disturbingly is that she had no facial expression, hence the name The Expressionless. Of course, the hospital staff were absolutely terrified of her, especially when she suddenly attacked the doctor and said, "I am God," before slaughtering everyone in the room. The Puppeteer. He is a vengeful spirit who feeds on loneliness and depression of others. He targets very emotionally fragile people and will use them for his own gain and power. He'll first stalk his victim for a certain period of time, slowly manipulating them into believing that there is no way from escaping him other than death. The Puppeteer also has two proxies, Zachary and Emra, who are only used in special occasions for when the Puppeteer needs a quick snap. NES Godzilla. Originally created by Caused by Daft around 2011, the story focused on the haunted NES cartridge of the game Godzilla Monster of Monsters. The story follows a player who discovers that his copy of the game has been mysteriously altered because he noticed that there were levels that kept getting increasingly grotesque, filled with more and more disturbing visuals, abstract monsters, and sinister messages that seem directed at him personally instead of Godzilla. The strangest security tape I ever seen. This refers to a Reddit creepypasta written by a deleted user on r/nosleep. It's quite long, so I'll try my best to summarize it. It's basically about the author and his boss who were worried that Jeremy, the creepy employee, might be stealing motor oil. In order to catch him, the author reviewed security footage from one of Jeremy's shifts, only to discover a series of unexplainable events that then turns out to be a time loop that makes the author have a consciousness reset because at the ending paragraph, he literally loops back to where he started. Abandoned by Disney. Abandoned by Disney is a creepypasta written by Christopher Howard Wolfe in 2012. It tells the story of an urban explorer who investigates a decaying Disney resort called Mowgli's Palace, which was supposedly built and then mysteriously abandoned in the 1990s. Deep inside the resort, the main protagonist discovers rooms filled with decaying maskets and strange remnants of the park's existence until he stumbled upon a disturbing sight. A room labeled Character Preparation, which contained a Mickey Mouse costume that isn't quite a costume as it moves on its own, oozes black fluid, and when his head fell off, there was no human or animatronic inside. Tales Doll Curse. Tales Doll is a creepypasta that originated shortly after sonic.exe became popular. Tales Doll is described to be a misanthropic, creepy, psychopathic, homicidal, and monstrous machine of mass murder and soul consumption. The Smiling Man. Again, this is another Reddit story. It originated in 2012 on the r/nosleep subreddit. The story is about the author who encounters a creepy smiling man who seems to be quote-unquote dance walking in the street at night. The encounter escalated, which left the author too traumatized to ever walk at night again. Suicidemouse.avi. Originating in 2008, Suicide Mouse AVI is a 1930s Mickey Mouse lost episode discovered in Disney's archive, where it starts off with Mickey walking normally, but it gets more and more disturbing as Mickey continues walking until Mickey straight up ends himself just like Squidward. Jason the Toymaker. Jason the Toymaker is a manipulative, cursed human being who has a passion for toy making and turning his victims into wax dolls. He also has a deep burning hatred for children. The Midnight King. This creepypasta's origin is unknown, but it is a challenge for summoning a demon called the Midnight Man. The players must follow a specific set of instructions like writing their name in their own blood on a piece of paper, knocking 22 times on the wooden door at midnight, and then avoiding the entity until 3:33 a.m. If you win this game, you get to make a wish that could come true. However, if you fail, you die. Pen Pal. Unlike most creepypasta stories, Pen Pal is actually a series of interconnected horror stories by author Dayton Arbach. It follows an unnamed main character as he reconstructs the horrifying events of his childhood, realizing that seemingly isolated, bizarre incidents were all connected by one sinister stalker. Nathan the Nobody. Nathan is a creepypasta character that comes from the story Nobody Saw It Coming. He grew up fatherless, so Nathan decided to be the man of the house and take care of his mom and sister, named Crystal. One day, Nathan and Crystal got kidnapped. The kidnappers locked Nathan in a dark, cold cellar room while they tortured his sister. Nathan escaped, but he was mad at the gruesome death of his sister, so he killed all the kidnappers and also started killing people he thought were part of the kidnapper group. Bloody Pink Flesh. Bloody Painter is a fictional serial killer in its own creepypasta series where he kills people and makes paintings using their own blood, hence the name. He is said to be very smart and manipulative. Marble Hornets. Marble Hornets is a found footage web series focused on Slenderman and his proxies. With the first video being posted to YouTube on June 20, 2009, it's considered to be the very first mainstream thing for Slenderman, and some say the series itself is way better than the 2018 Slenderman film. The Rake. The Rake is a terrifying humanoid creature originating in the early 2000s. It is described to be pale, emaciated, and hairless with glowing eyes, often crouching or crawling. It reportedly stalks humans at night, attacking or terrifying them in bedrooms, forests, or isolated areas, leaving its victims with psychological trauma, permanent physical injuries, or worse, death. Gateway of the Mind. The Gateway of the Mind is a creepypasta that's based on a real radio experiment conducted in 1956 by a psychologist named Hubert Wilkins. The creepypasta story itself is about a radio program that was used to induce viewers into deep hypnotic states, supposedly opening their minds to alternate realities or interdimensional communication. However, participants experienced terrifying visions, unexplained disappearances, or irreversible mental breakdowns after being exposed to the subliminal cues and frequencies, so the experiment kind of backfired. The Dollmaker. The Dollmaker is a story about a boy named Vine. Vine was the son of a brilliant dollmaker, and one day a rich man named Gier wanted a life-size doll for him to quote-unquote have fun with. The dad said no, so Gier killed him, and Gier began using Vine as the doll, which completely messes up Vine's mental state. Vine ends up escaping and killing Gier a few years later, but Vine is still mentally unwell. So Vine ends up meeting a teenage girl named Emily and turned her corpse into a doll. He still felt pretty disgusted with himself, so he gouged out one of his eyes and replaced it with a doll eye. Entity 303. Entity 303 is another Minecraft creepypasta. Unlike Herobrine though, he isn't a ghost. Entity 303 is a salty Mojang employee that got fired by Notch, so now he's trying to act out revenge on both Mojang and Minecraft players. Polybius. Polybius creepypasta is about a fictional 1981 arcade game from a mysterious company called Sinislotion. It appeared in all the arcades of Portland, Oregon, and the game was said to be extremely popular, but it caused severe side effects like amnesia, nightmares, and hallucinations in players. Allegedly, men in black suits would sometimes collect data from the machines before the game suddenly and mysteriously disappeared, leading to several conspiracy theories like the game being a government mind control experiment. Mario. Not much is known for all caps Mario aside from the fact it's a Super Mario World ROM hack creepypasta made by a FMW Central user named Mario. Funnymouth. Funnymouth is an anomalous entity that appears in online chat rooms. Unlike most creepypastas that inspire themselves from real disturbing events, this creepypasta inspires itself from early internet forum users with horrible typing skills. Clockwork, your time is up. So Clockwork was originally a normal teenage girl named Natalie, but then her family began abusing her both physically and also mentally. Natalie was unable to tell anyone at the time, so she had to fall back on her older brother named Lucas for protection. However, Lucas also began abusing her. She decides to finally tell someone about the abuse, so she tells a girl in her class named Mia. Mia ended up sabotaging her and made fun of her for it, making both the school and the entire internet make fun of her. At 16, Natalie gets a boyfriend named Chris, but Chris ends up breaking up with her for always being so pessimistic. Natalie goes home, locks herself in the bathroom, finally snaps and begins sewing her mouth to form a smile with black threads and stitches. Her mother was horrified, so she takes her to the doctor, only for the surgery to get botched, so her appearance got changed forever. She then went on to kill the doctor, the two security guards, and escapes the hospital to then kill her mom, her dad, her brother, and even the family dog wasn't safe. She then found her dad's pocket watch, so what she does is removes her left eye and replaces it with a watch. She renamed herself Clockwork and burned her house to the ground before going on to seek more victims, where she decides if their time is up. Fallout 3 Number Station. Originating in 2008 on the video game Fallout 3, the creepypasta claims that a hidden unlisted radio station in the game broadcasts a disturbing series of numbers, codes, and eerie audio at odd intervals. Players who allegedly heard it report hearing distorted voices, unsettling ambient noises, and messages hinting at something sinister. Brutal Obscene Beast. Brutal Obscene Beast, also known simply as Bob, is a creature with a similar appearance to the rake but has no arms and only short stubby legs. Bob is said to be very mysterious, so there is not a lot of information known about him to get a clear understanding about his personality or motives. However, Bob appears to only operate on pure animal instincts alone, so he acts in a very animalistic and aggressive nature. Bob also seems to have some sort of vendetta towards humans who have physically seen him. Mr. Widemouth. Mr. Widemouth is a Furby-looking creature with a wide mouth, hence the name Mr. Widemouth. The story itself follows the author, who is bedridden by an illness, but one day he meets Mr. Widemouth. Mr. Widemouth starts off all playful at first, but then begins suggesting the author do self-harm, like jumping out the window or juggling knives. The author was smart though and didn't do any of that, and by the end of the story, when the narrator was all grown up, he saw a trail he never seen before, so he followed it, and it led to a children's cemetery, showing all the kids that Mr. Widemouth murdered. Zalgo. Zalgo is a creepypasta made by Chris Oz Fulton. He is a popular creepypasta character, often depicted as an incredibly powerful and malevolent entity who brings insanity and destruction. He is said to be a giant eyeless being with 7 mouths that speak different languages. Lore about him says Zalgo is the ruler of the creepypasta world. He tricked the human woman into carrying his daughter named Lazari, and some lore even says Zalgo is the father of Slenderman, but that's kinda hard to tell considering there's many theories to the backstory of Slenderman. JVK1166C.esv. The name is kinda complicated, so I'm calling it JK for short. JK is basically a Morrowind mod that would hang the initial loading screens for an hour before completely crashing. It is said that if you let the mod run that far, then your install of Morrowind, along with any save files you might have, would be completely corrupted. However, one player managed to bypass it somehow, and once he was in the game, he noticed the world was different because the main quest is effectively broken, key NPCs are dead, health drains over time, and an untextured figure, known as the Assassin, was stalking him. He found a mysterious dungeon called the Citadel, where he discovered a locked door with portraits that seemed to display images from the player's own computer hard drive. The player then saw the assassin try to kill him in the game, but then the player woke up and realized it was a dream. He thought he was safe until he saw the assassin in real life. The player then woke up again and realized it was a dream inside of a dream, and turns out he was still at the beginning of the game. He then heard 3 little taps in his window in real life, but the story literally ends right here. Username 666. Originating in 2010, Username 666 is a creepypasta that revolves around a mysterious and malevolent YouTube account named exactly Username 666. The videos uploaded by this account are highly disturbing because it would literally cause viewers to experience hallucinations, nightmares, and paranoia. Marina Mordigard Lesgrove. On 2008, a 20-second video began circulating around YouTube. The video starts off with a man staring at you for 20 seconds, but in the last 2 seconds, the man begins grinning at you as the background gets progressively darker. The full video actually lasts 2 minutes, but it was eventually removed by YouTube after a total of 153 people who watched the video allegedly gouged their eyes out and mailed them to YouTube's main office in San Bruno. Chatroom 98. Chatroom 98 is a creepypasta and horror stories from the early 2010s era of the internet. It's centered around a seemingly ordinary chatroom website, but it has a secret evil presence. According to the tale, a user would enter the chat labeled Chatroom98 and begin talking with other people who are initially friendly at first, but they would then begin to say some personal info about the user. The Harbinger Experiment. The Harbinger Experiment is a 2013 creepypasta written by Zion J. The story itself is about the final confession of the only survivor of the Harbinger Experiment, which is a secretive and ill-fated project led in 1987 by a ruthless scientist nicknamed Zimmerman. Zimmerman wanted to prove the existence of the supernatural by using human objects as vessels for otherworldly entities. The main character of this story is a doctor hired for the project, and we go through his perspective as he talks about how the experiment went so horribly wrong because one subject straight up died, another transformed into a clawed monster that killed a security guard, and the third mutated into a tall, smooth-skinned creature with large black eyes that eventually broke free and slaughtered everyone in the facility. I Hate You. All caps I Hate You is another Mario creepypasta. Unlike previous haunted game creepypastas, this one isn't a glitch nor is it really haunted. It's just a secret level that user Slimebees found which contained the message, "I hate you." Misfortune.gb. Misfortune is an obscure game that can be played on the Game Boy. Though there are no hard copies or ROMs left of it, the people who are misfortunate enough to play it describe it to be the most scariest game they ever played. This man. This refers to this specific person that a lot of people have allegedly seen in their dreams. God's Mouth. You know that cave diver meme where people get stuck in the most ridiculous places? Well, this story is basically the creepypasta version of that, since God's Mouth is a story about a man named Nathan and his girlfriend Margaret who go cave diving in a forbidden cave called God's Mouth. But turns out it was not a cave but a living entity that eats people. So Nathan and Margaret end up getting crushed to death by the stone wall. The shower. So this creepypasta actually has two parts. In the first part, the main character is a man who is infamous for fabricating urban legends. However, you finally encounter the real one. He recounts about how his charismatic high school teacher, Mr. Maze, once told a spooky Halloween story about getting lost with his college friends in Nebraska and discovering a sinister underground facility where they found a room full of ghost children standing on the shower head. Years later, the main character meets a drunken and broken Mr. Meat at the bar and learns the story was true and had a much darker ending. Turns out, one of his friends, Tim, disappeared that night and was never ever found. On part 2 though, Mr. May died and the main character, who is driven by his obsession of the story, decided to bring his own friend named Steve to literally follow in Mr. May's footsteps. They found the location and for some reason they decided to split up. The main character saw a literal child in the shower, so he got so scared that he ended up fainting on the spot, so Steve had to save him. Steve didn't see the child though, so he doesn't know what the main character saw, and the main character never told Steve about it. Hide and Seek Alone. Hide and Seek Alone, aka Hitori Kakurenbo, is a famous game originating in Japan and Korea. You basically let a spirit or a demon possess a doll and then play a game of hide and seek with them. The game is said to be very dangerous and the wiki even says if you don't follow the steps properly, you will die. Do not play this game at all, you will die. The Wanderer. The Wanderer is a creepypasta about a cursed digital image from the 1990s that depicts a transparent Spider-Man-like figure standing on a lonely road. Those who view the image are apparently haunted by the entity and will see it in their nightmares and dreams. The first victim of this is a college student named Jane. She first receives an email containing the infamous image and its accompanying message, "Do you see me? I can see you too," implying the curse has resurfaced and is now targeting her. Jane ended up ending herself, and in case you're curious, here's the image. The Portraits. This is a short creepypasta horror story about a group of travelers being in a mountain and they decide to stay the night in a random wooden cabin. They start drinking alcohol and got drunk and began laughing at the funny faces in the portraits. Next day though, once they were finally sober, they ended up realizing that they were not portraits but rather windows. Lost episodes. Lost episodes refers to the amount of creepy lost episodes that a bunch of TV shows have. Psychosis. Psychosis is a creepypasta written by author Matt Demirsky in 2011 and is praised as one of the best psychological horror stories ever posted on the internet. It's told from the perspective of a man who slowly isolates himself inside his apartment, convinced that something outside, possibly the entire world, has been replaced or corrupted by invisible forces. As days pass, he loses all trust in communication, people, and even his own senses. He quickly descends into paranoia and madness. Ronald McDonald House. Again, another creepypasta story. The main character is a troubled 15-year-old girl in foster care who is given a choice between military school and the Ronald McDonald House. She chooses the Ronald McDonald House, expecting some free chicken nuggets and fries. Instead, she is taken to a horrifying windowless facility staffed by evil knife-wielding clown nurses that drug him. After being drugged and waking up in a cell, she discovers his photo album has been replaced with crime scene photos of all his former foster families murdered. She escapes the hellhole only to enter an even bigger hellhole as she witnesses a room of children being crucified so she flees through a sewer system and stumbles into a seemingly abandoned version of Detroit. The story ends with him typing this story on the internet, but then Ronald McDonald laughs and she ends up joining him. Where Bad Kids Go. This story recounts a man's childhood memory of a disturbing Lebanese children's TV show from the 1980s, where every episode ended with the camera zooming in on a rusted door while agonizing screams played in the background while a text appeared saying, "That's where bad kids go." Haunted by this memory, he decided to investigate this as an adult and finds the abandoned studio running the TV show. In there, he discovers a horrifying room containing scattered blood, feces, and tiny bone fragments, with a bolted cage microphone hanging from the ceiling, which meant the terrifying screams from the show were not voices acted out, but actual real screaming of children being tortured in that very room he's in. Romanian Knowledge Experiment. In the 1960s, a scientist named Alexandru Sif studied Romania's paranormal Hoia Baxiu forest, concluding that knowledge is harmful, ignorance is bliss. A decade later, the Roman government recreated his experiment, sending 3 volunteers into the forest at night with different light sources. The first one, who was using an oil lantern, felt like he was getting followed by shadows. The second one, who was using an infrared camera, saw a large hunched glowing red creature that stalked him the whole time. The third one, equipped with a night vision camera, immediately saw the creature in terrifying detail. It was a huge gorilla-like being with fish-like eyes and dark pupils, and the third one was never seen again. He left only one final desperate note, which reads, "If you find this, please tell my family I love them. These may be my last words." After I couldn't see the helicopter anymore, I turned on the camera to check my surroundings. I can see it 20 meters in front of me. It doesn't move as I write this. It doesn't even blink. It has no eyebrows. It's higher than any human or bear I have ever encountered. It's hunched like a gorilla, supporting its weight on the extremities of its limbs. I can't even call those things hands. It has fish-like eyes, no pupils, pure engulfing darkness. Oh god, it's tearing down trees as it moves. Rap Rat. Rap Rat is a creepypasta about a cursed VHS board game from the early 1990s. Modeled after real interactive games like Nightmare or Atmosphere, in the story, the author talks about playing the game as a child where the main character is a grotesque puppet called Rap Rat. It would usually appear on the TV to taunt and guide players through the game. However, the puppet's behavior becomes increasingly disturbing as its face distorts, its voice turns demonic, and it begins whispering violent personal things to the players instead of rapping. Later, the author learns that the tape contained ties to satanic imagery and experiments in psychological conditioning. Stairs. The Stairs, often known by its other names as The Staircase or Stairs in the Woods, is a popular creepypasta where a search and rescue officer experiences strange things happening in the wilderness. The most unsettling detail is the reoccurring appearances of staircases found deep in the forest. Sometimes it would be old and crumbling, sometimes it would be clean and pristine, but they would always lead to nowhere. The officer is told to never approach them because those who do will either vanish from existence or go mentally insane. On the Bus. On the Bus is a lesser-known creepypasta that tells the story of a commuter who boards a late-night bus only to realize that the bus is not going to his destination. When he confronts the driver, he immediately panics as the driver was a corpse, and suddenly all the other passengers begin turning towards him. The story ends with the main character being stuck in that hellhole bus driving to the endless darkness. Kakigao. Kakigao is a 21-year-old Japanese demon who currently lives somewhere in America. He was born in Japan but got separated from his parents when he was at a young age. It is said that he has a playful sadistic personality and takes great joy in designing and enacting long, painful, and usually fatal games on whatever poor victim he picks out. The Holders. The Holders is a collaborative horror web project about supernatural objects and their guardians. It has a total of 538 stories about different objects, and if they all got gathered together, it would literally cause the end of the world. Tulpa. Tulpas, also known as Agiorias, are basically spiritual entities created by thought. While that sounds easy, it can actually take a few days to correctly visualize a tulpa, and they will always be short-lived because they deteriorate quickly after being created. Pale Luna. Pale Luna is a classic creepypasta from the late 2000s. It's a mystery text-based adventure game, kind of like Zork, but it hides a deadly secret. In the story, the player discovers an old DOS game titled Pale Luna. which seems broken at first because it only features simple commands, limited movement, and cryptic messages like "Pale Luna smiles wide." Whenever the player makes progress after several hours of playing the game, the player realizes the game has a set of GPS coordinates upon completion. When he visits the coordinates in real life, he digs at the spot only to uncover the decomposing remains of a murdered girl. The Quiet Sky. The Quiet Sky is a creepypasta that combines both cosmic horror and apocalyptic dread. It begins when people notice that the sky becomes quiet. No birds humming, no plane engines roaring, no thunder striking, not even any wind. As days pass, stars vanish, the moon doesn't rise, and the sun begins behaving strangely, sometimes freezing in place or glowing unnaturally bright. All worldwide governments collapse while trying to explain it, and all the people worldwide descend into panic, insanity, or straight up worshipping the sky. Happy Happy. This is another creepypasta horror story. Basically, a sentient apple named Happy Happy slowly turns from a helpful apple to a serial killer whose mission is to kill little kids along with his assistant named Forensic. Icebergchart. The story talks about a man's lifelong relationship with a homemade stuffed monster named Mr. Icebergchart, also known as Ick for short. Ick was originally created by the man's mother when he was little to protect him from childhood nightmares. Ick starts off as a comforting toy but eventually reveals itself to be a real demonic entity that demands a gruesome payment for its protection, which is human and animal teeth. The adult main character is now trapped in a cycle of fear, so he's pretty much forced to commit violent acts just to supply Ick with more teeth. Liars. All Cats Liars is a story revolving around Jimmy, who was a high school student who loved to tell jokes. He got on the wrong side of a group of bullies who cornered him one day and scarred his face by pouring formic acid on him. The bullies then proceeded to lie about what happened to Jimmy's face, so Jimmy gets angry about this, so he brutally murders all the bullies before saying, "Honestly, honesty is the best policy. At least they're not hiding anything from me, and neither am I from them." Normalcornfornormalpeople.com. Unlike what the name suggests, this is not a normal corn website. The story of it is about an irresponsible man trying to goon, so he clicks on this website expecting corn, but instead he got the most weirdest videos ever. Happy Sun Daycare. An investigative journalist looks into a closed daycare after hearing disturbing rumors from former employees and attendees. He discovers that misbehaving children were punished by being locked in a dark empty room known as the Grey Door, where they would get attacked by a large vicious dog. The journalist does a lot of interviews with the children and the daycare workers, and turns out the children were absolutely traumatized by the dog and the staff tried to cover it up. However, the dog was not a normal dog, but rather a horrifying creature because the journalist noticed that the footprints that matched that of a dog, and no normal dog walks on two legs. The Pocket. The main character and his group of friends investigate an abandoned silo that's rumored to be haunted. They discover a hidden tunnel that leads them to a fenced-in forest prison for a grotesque creature called the Pocket. This creature wears the skin faces of his victims as masks, hunts them down, and ends up killing two of his friends. The main character and his girlfriend, Meg, barely escape, but they manage to survive. Years later, the main character and Meg are married, but the Pocket somehow escapes and murders Meg. The story ends with the main character realizing the Pocket has found him too, and as it is about to kill him, he has this delulu thought where he starts believing that the creature's motive is to free people from the hell of this world, and he literally smiles while he dies. Diary of Mr. Well Done. Unlike most of the stories on this iceberg so far, this story is from the perspective of the villain instead of the victim. It's basically a monologue from a malevolent cosmic entity named Mr. Well Done, who claims to have witnessed the reader's birth, aka your birth, and that he will also witness your death. Annie96 is typing. Annie96 is a cursed MSN messenger account that first circulated online around the early 2000s. The main story follows an unnamed teenage girl who receives a friend request from a mysterious user named Annie96. Annie seemed friendly at first, but quickly exhibits bizarre behavior. Messages from Annie96 would appear at impossible times and would reference private events that the teenage girl has never shared with anyone, and Annie's profile picture sometimes changes to disturbing images such as distorted faces or gore. The Pastel Man. The Pastel Man is a tall humanoid entity that has a cheerful and childlike appearance due to his clothing being in soft pastel colors. But he is actually hiding a deeply sinister nature since he is said to be extremely manipulative. Rugrats Theory. The Rugrats theory is a dark fan-made speculation that all babies in the show Rugrats are imaginary except Angelica. The theory states that Tommy was stillborn, Chucky died with his mother, and the Devils had an abortion. Then who was Phone? Apparently this is more of a troll pasta than a creepypasta. It's poorly written on purpose because it's a parody and the who was phone part is meant to say, then who was on the phone if her dad is dead? Ted the Caver. If Slenderman, Jeff the Killer, and Smile Dog are considered to be the dinosaurs of creepypasta, then Ted the Caver is the microscopic life form that predated the dinosaurs 500 billion years ago. Ted the Caver is said to be one of the most earliest and most influential creepypastas, originating all the way in 2001 on an Angel Fire website long before the term creepypasta even existed. It's presented as a real-life blog kept by a man named Ted who documented his exploration of a narrow cave system with his friend B. At first, the entries describe regular caving details, but it slowly progresses into a hellhole. Yeah, no, I'm not reading this name. The name is quite long, so I'm gonna be calling it $1 for short. It's a story that follows Henry Goodman, brother of another accursed object victim, who buys a used Sony camcorder on eBay for some sort of family vacation. Inside it though, he finds a tape labeled 2006. Instead of deleting it like a normal person, he plays it and sees normal footage of a little girl named Alice at the playground, but it then cuts to a horrifying scene of her eyeless, noseless body dripping green slime, followed with her corpse hanging from a swing. Henry, being traumatized by this, decides to destroy the tape, but he ends up having nightmares of the girl and starts reliving the recordings himself. When he finally wakes up, he sees his wife freeze at the bedroom door, pointing towards the TV showing the eyeless girl's face. But plot twist, it isn't a TV, it's a window. The Maximum Judgment. This is a creepypasta story about a cosmic entity known as the Supreme Judge, who is a faceless, omnipotent being who presides over the final judgment of souls after their deaths. He is described to be a giant dark figure with massive wings of both fire and ice. Its verdict is said to be absolute and delivered directly into the consciousness of the soul. The punishment for a condemnation isn't hell, but rather a conscious and painful disintegration of the person's body, mind, and soul that would then get scattered and recycled into raw materials of the cosmos. Mandu. Mandu is basically the creepypasta version of Freddy Krueger. He is a demonic being that tries to hurt you in your nightmares. Mandu is also the spirit of the people you've once hurt, so therefore they'll obviously want revenge on you. The only way to survive Mandu is to avoid him and not think of him at all. Killswitch. Killswitch is a creepypasta and internet horror story centered around a mysterious and deadly video game. In the story of it, a player gets a copy of the game and it appears normal at first, but it soon begins to show signs of malicious supernatural behavior as it begins manipulating reality, attacks the player mentally, and even predicts their actions outside the game. Console Me. I don't know if there's an original Console Me creepypasta, but based from what I researched, Console Me comes from the epic rap battles of creepypasta series where it is a personification of a corrupted video game console. Pokemon Come Follow Me. After two Pokemon video games got released in 1996, a wave of child suicides and violent self-harm is linked to these said games. An investigation led by the main character reveals that an evil programmer named Shiro Miura, who is under the direction of an eviler mastermind named Sasuke Tamada, had inserted a hidden piece of code into the very beginning of the game. This code would cause a rare glitched event where before the player receives their first Pokemon, they can encounter a Pokemon in the tall grass. This encounter doesn't trigger a battle, but instead displays messages from the player's dead loved ones telling them to come follow them, aka end yourself. Noli Mado. Noli Mado is a creature of darkness that stalks his victims and makes them play a game with him in the night. In the game, the rules are simple. Noli and his victim will make a race to the victim's bed. If the victim wins, Noli will not return to play with him. If Noli wins, then he will torture the victim until dawn. However, this game is absolutely rigged, because one of Noli's abilities is that he can move faster than the human eye. Unless you're the Flash, you literally have no chance of winning. Mr. Mix. This is a creepypasta about a notoriously difficult 1990s typing game called Mr. Mix. The game was known for its uncanny audio and the disturbing design of the chef named Mr. Mix. The game is said to have given countless children nightmares, and years later, after its commercial failure, a group of hackers uncovered the hidden malicious code within the game. They used it to bypass the impossible 5th level, but it then triggered the game to corrupt the user's computer with a bunch of horrific images. Those who managed to access the final 6th level got so mentally destroyed by it that they become reclusive, lost the ability to speak coherently, and even went missing. One of these hackers ended up getting arrested for trying to kidnap a 8-year-old girl, and he has gone completely insane and started identifying with Mr/mixed pronouns, white with red. A pervert in a hotel gets repeatedly warned to avoid a locked, unnumbered door and go be a creep somewhere else. Him being a stubborn pervert ends up doing it anyways, and he peeks through the keyhole. During the first night, he sees a pale-skinned woman inside. On the second night, he only sees red. When he confesses to the front desk clerk, the clerk doesn't scold him for being a pervert, but instead reveals the room's backstory, and turns out a man once murdered his wife in there, and her ghost now haunts it. The woman is described to be white all over, except for her eyes, which are red, which meant the ghost lady was completely aware when the creep was staring at her. Super Mario 64. This story revolves around the author who buys a mysterious glitchy copy of Super Mario 64 from a sketchy website. The game is immediately corrupted, featuring a deformed title screen, missing characters, and no in-game audio at all. He is led on a chase by a non-standard Luigi model to a cottage where he sees Luigi hanging himself. The game then shows different horrific levels that depict the author's own family in decomposed states that go from recently dead to literal skeletons. The game ends with Mario being swallowed by a giant eel, after which the game permanently displays a skeletal photo of the player's family, suggesting that the game's curse has already taken over and that he will die soon. Happiness for sale. Again, this story revolves around the author. He recounts a terrifying encounter with a strange skeletal man with an inhumanly wide evil grin on his face who comes to his town. This happy masked salesman opens a shop, and the author, being stupid, decides to directly investigate. Inside, he witnesses the salesman's true monstrous nature because the salesman literally devours a young child and then peels the skin from its own face and molds it into a mask made from the child's own flesh. The author runs away and the salesman disappears from town, but at the end, the author urges everyone reading this to stay away from the salesman. Unknown format. The main character's friend named Nick gives him his game collection to rip onto his computer. To bypass copy protection, the main character downloads a mysterious Japanese program called Shikami no Tengen. The program works, but then creates files in an unknown format with a .4 extension. Out of curiosity, the main character runs the games in the format and discovers they are terrifyingly altered, features darker, more violent, and gruesome content that wasn't even in the original games, and this effect then extends to a movie file, and when he tries to uninstall the program, it forces him to watch a slideshow of real-life atrocities and deaths. The story ends with the main character being apprehended for being a violent criminal, and turns out the 4 in Japanese is actually a homophone for the word death. Gray Man. When I researched this part, I came across a bunch of stories relating to a certain gray man, but they are all different. I'm not sure what the iceberg could be referring to because it could be referring to this story, which talks about the author's friend named Mike disappearing due to a mysterious gray man, or it could refer to this story, which talks about a gray man with a funny face that also controls the sky. The Strider. This follows the story of Pruzel, who follows a strange rustling sound in the forest and encounters this scary 15-foot tall creature with shaggy black fur, a dog-like face, and long lanky legs. This entity is known as the Strider, and it haunts by ripping the legs off of its prey. After the encounter, Pruzel learns that the Strider will relentlessly hunt any human who sees it until they are dead, so Pruzel is pretty much destined to die. When Pruzel's parents go missing, Pruzel finally confronts the Strider in the forest and offers their own life in exchange for her parents' safety. The creature accepts, and the story ends with the creature killing Pruzel. String theory. Not to confuse it with the string theory you learn in physics class, the creepypasta version of string theory is actually a short psychological horror story that revolves around the main character finding out there's invisible strings that control everything in existence. Over time, he realizes these strings are manipulating his life, choices, and thoughts, so he begins cutting the strings he believes are attached to him, but he ends up committing self-mutilation and dies from it. The Perfect Child. The Perfect Child is a newborn baby of unnatural hypnotic beauty. From the moment it was born, it had this power of making people obsessive and violent to raise him. First, it belonged to the original mom, but then the nurse murders the mom to have him for himself. The nurse then gets killed by a man who then steals the baby. This man had a pre-existing wife and newborn child, but he focuses purely on the baby that he just kidnapped. He then gets murdered by his wife, and when she sees the child, she then proceeds to kill her own infant just so the beautiful baby can be her only son. Two police officers then discover the scene, and one of the officers murders his own partner as well as the woman just so he could claim the baby for himself. Boraska. This is a really long horror story about a boy named Sam Walker who moves with his family to the small town of Risking, Missouri. He quickly becomes best friends with his neighbors named Kyle and Kimber. During their summer adventures, they introduce him to a local legend about a place called Boraska, a location in the woods where bad things supposedly happen. It is also commonly associated with a terrifying metallic grinding noise as well as the myth of skinned men. Suddenly, a personal tragedy for Sam Sykes when his teenage sister named Whitney mysteriously disappears. It is then revealed that she had recently carved her name into the triple tree near the treehouse, just as soon as the ominous sound from Boraska is heard from the mountains. The Strangers. This is a horror story about how a man named Andrew Eriks watches people in the New York subway, but he then notices unnervingly passive, expressionless individuals he calls the Strangers. He decides to follow one, and this one stranger lures him into the last train of the night. Instead of returning to the surface, Andrew is transported to this nightmarish infinite series of subway lines that connect to alien worlds populated by otherworldly monstrous beings. The stranger abandons him, and now Andrew is trapped in his labyrinth, and he must either remain stuck in this alien world, or he must find a way back to the central hub by making another human notice and follow him, which creates this never-ending torture cycle that passes on from victim to victim. Stubbs Clubhouse. Stubbs Clubhouse is a low-budget children's show from the 1990s. In the story, a man rediscovers it and finds a VHS tape of a bookstore. When he watches it with his younger sister, he is horrified to discover that the show is not a recording, but is somehow broadcasting live and is literally showing the children in his own neighborhood. The tape becomes more and more distorted and sinister with each episode until in the last episode, Stubb proceeds to literally torture a child. The tape then cuts to a live feed of Stubb standing over the man's sleeping younger sister. The Princess. The Princess is the main antagonist of a creepypasta game known as If You See Her. Her backstory is quite sad because the dev of her game stopped working on it, so she was left in a glitchy, forgotten wasteland. Her only company was NPCs, but sadly they don't have any AI in them. The Theater. When researching, I came across several creepypasta stories of the same name, but the one that caught my attention the most was the haunted theater at Star Mall, Alabang in the Philippines. Allegedly, it was built on top of a cemetery, so the ghosts from the corpses ended up haunting it. Especially the theater section, where most of the time it would be empty but would appear full because the ghosts would disguise themselves as humans. Upstairs. An unnamed child comes home to a dark, empty house and calls out for his mom. A voice responds from upstairs answering yes every time the child calls. The child goes upstairs and follows his mother's voice to a far room, but before he could fully enter, the child's real mother enters the house through the front door, and as the child is about to go downstairs, he glances back one more time and sees the door to the room slowly crack open, revealing a pale, creepy face staring back at him. Dying Happy. A man who is unnamed in the story has a best friend named Owen. Owen becomes obsessed with the character in the game Tomodachi Life named Mr. Happy Death Dead, who sings a disturbing but funny song called Dying Happy with lyrics about ending oneself. Shortly after, Owen jumps to his death, smiling as he does it. The man decides to get his own copy of the game to feel closer to his dead best friend, but the same Mr. Happy character mysteriously appears. Then the man literally loses control and got hypnotized because he also ends himself after being convinced that dying happy is the ultimate goal. The Wyoming Incident. The Wyoming Incident is a 2006 internet horror story and an alternate reality game centered around a purported television broadcast hijacking in Niobrara County, Wyoming. According to the main story, a hacker interrupted a local news station broadcast, replacing it with a disturbing video featuring disembodied human heads displaying various emotions and poses. The video was accompanied by cryptic messages such as, "You are ill and we just want to fix you," which led to widespread distress among viewers and psychological effects like hallucinations and nausea. Toter's Maze. A computer science teaching assistant gets an old desktop from a departed adjunct professor's office and discovers a mysterious floppy disk labeled Toter's Maze. The game initially appears to be a simple maze navigation title, but it quickly becomes disturbing. The player is supposed to control a red dot that hunts a blue dot, but then the levels start becoming abstract representations of real-life locations. The real horror starts when the assistant realizes the game is causing real-world deaths. First it was his stepfather, then the campus custodian, and lastly he encounters a grotesque red entity and finally realizes he is next. Halloween 64. It's about a Nintendo 64 game cartridge, and according to the story, the game was discovered after rumors circulated online which led to the unnamed protagonist to search for and eventually find a copy. This would be her biggest mistake because playing the game at first seems like it's just an innocent Halloween themed game, but it gradually becomes more disturbing and even dangerous. Persuaded. Persuaded is a zombie apocalypse creepypasta where instead of the usual Walking Dead type of zombie that chases after you and bites you to infect you, these zombies are very patient for their victims in any amount of time without ever getting impatient. They persuade their victims to become one of them and would convince them that becoming a zombie isn't that bad. The Passenger. The protagonist of this story is a woman with fertility issues who gets carjacked at a train station by a frantic pregnant woman named Esther, who has a knife and forces her to drive a remote location. After a long disorienting drive, Esther flees into the woods toward a clearing with the statue of a pregnant woman. The woman follows and witnesses a horrific ritual where spectral hands emerge from the ground and they begin brutally extracting Esther's unborn child. But the thing is though, it wasn't a human. The story ends with the woman then finding out that she is now pregnant herself, implying that the entity that Esther gave birth to has been transferred to her. Obey the Walrus. Obey the Walrus is a classic creepy video that surfaced around the internet around 2007. The video features a distorted clip of Johnny Bima, who is from a 90s documentary film called The Goddess Bunny, and she is tap dancing for about a minute before the video fades out to a picture of a walrus. The video also features a distorted version of the Itsy Bitsy Spider song, and due to the video's disturbing nature, it has inspired several creepypasta remixes and parodies. 1 million viewer. This is a story where the main protagonist receives a mysterious link to a website called 0000000.icu that promises a million viewers in exchange for their email address. The site features a single animated eye that identifies itself as one of the 1 million. After providing his email, the protagonist's online content immediately goes viral, gaining hundreds of thousands of views. However, the site becomes more sinister and more eyes begin appearing, and the protagonist also gets haunted by nightmares of being watched and choked by a million eyes. Later, they receive a desperate email from the person who originally sent the link, and turns out the entity is an unstoppable force that feeds on personal information and that the original sender was only sacrificing others to delay his own fate. The Basement. This is a Reddit story on the subreddit r/nosleep. A man named Mordecai moves into his mother's basement to save money for his wedding. Almost immediately though, he begins to feel a sinister presence inside the basement at night. For months, he endures the creeping horror as the evil presence grows stronger and went from the corner of the room to just being a foot away from his bed. On his second to last night, he uses a nightlight to discover the terrifying truth, which is that this evil presence is actually his mom, who is crouching on the floor with a menacing grin, staring at him with wide, crazy eyes. After his wedding, he receives a note from her that reads, "I'll always be with you." Paid for Blood. Paid for Blood is a creepypasta horror story that talks about the eerie and unsettling events of an expedition to a mysterious excavation site. This story is presented as an interview with Mr. Howard, a member of Expedition 5A, who was commissioned by the Stoker estate. The expedition was tasked with investigating the land excavation site, which is a location previously abandoned due to unexplained supernatural occurrences. The crew, consisting of Mr. Howard and other people, embarked on the journey after being promised lots of money. They go in only for them to regret it as they experience the horrors themselves. The Queen's Guard. Just for added context, the story was probably made before the death of Queen Elizabeth II. I just want to get that out before I get any comments saying, "Oh, but England isn't ruled by Queen Elizabeth, it's ruled by King Charles." But anyways, a former soldier, who's now Queen's Guard in London, is repeatedly harassed by a deeply unsettling woman who stands motionless, leans unnaturally close to his face, and whispers a countdown, 10, 9, 8. His commander wants him to never speak to her, but after the guard breaks this rule, the woman's stalking goes crazier because she then appears in his home and the countdown continues. The commander reveals that responding to her is very dangerous and very stupid, so the guard gets removed from his post. The woman then begins stalking the guard's 7-year-old niece, completing the countdown to 0, and then the woman possesses the niece. Out with a Bang. This is more of a sad story rather than a creepypasta. It's about a man who ends himself with a gun and goes out with a bang. Literally. Never go camping in the woods alone. Another story from the r/nosleep subreddit. Space Monkey Momo describes setting up camp in a remote forest only to encounter unsettling noises and a sense of being watched by a predator. Despite the isolation, she hears footsteps and whispers, leading to her getting more scared and paranoid. The story ends with a terrifying encounter with an unseen entity, which traumatized Space Monkey Momo so much that he never decided to go camping in the woods alone again. Raylo. Raylo is a lesser-known creepypasta character and is often associated with Zalgo. This is because he is similarly depicted as a twisted, shadowy figure with mechanical elements. Raylo's true origins are unclear because information about his character is scarce. Some say Raylo is a corrupted entity, some say he is a proxy of Zalgo, some say he is a she, and a lot more stuff, so his depictions are kinda unknown. Skin Daddy. Skin Daddy is an evil, tall, humanoid abomination characterized by its special hair and glowing white eyes. It first gains the trust of children by appearing as a friendly figure, only to slowly destroy their lives. Mordecai. Mordecai is a character from the regular show, but his creepypasta version is called Nightmare Mordecai, who is one of the bosses that the player encounters throughout their journey in the Dungeons of Deception at floors 1 to 2. Skype. This is a creepypasta story based on the messaging app Skype. During a Skype call, a hungover university student who watches as his friend Annie, who is not Annie96 by the way, this is a different Annie, but anyways, she leaves her room for a fire drill but left the call connected. While she is gone, a masked intruder wearing a goat skull and butcher's hook enters her room. The main protagonist tries to call Annie to warn her, but the intruder answers the phone and mocks him. The intruder then hides inside Annie's wardrobe, so the main character calls the police, but when Annie returns, Annie gets killed and the main character is left silent while still in the call with the 911 operator. Email. This is another story about how a man's life gets destroyed after accidentally opening an email called EBOV-7X. Turns out it is a genetically modified weaponized strain of Ebola designed to be more contagious and less detectable. He denies, so he becomes the target of a bunch of quote-unquote accidents. One of these accidents included a tractor explosion meant to kill him. He realizes his wife is in danger as well, so he decides to fake his own death and disappear. For 9 years straight, he has to live constantly on the run. Every attempt to leak the information to journalists or politicians would literally cause their career to die or themselves to die. And he had to watch his wife, Faye, be with another man because of course she thinks he is dead. The story ends after he risks posting the story online, which led to a brutal attack on an innocent family whose Wi-Fi he used. The Tale of Robert Elm. This is a creepypasta story about a man named Robert Elm. One night in 1962, after he had a fight with his fiancée named Elizabeth, a saddened Robert gets lured from a cornfield by a giant hooded man named Lombard. Lombard takes him to a secluded farmhouse inhabited by a cult called the Dark Circle, who worship a goddess named Thekira. Robert slowly realizes that the cult is made up of cannibals and that he is literally gonna be eaten. He then discovers that they also brainwash Elizabeth to manipulate him, so Robert fights Lombard, escapes the compound, and tries to flee to his old life. For years, he remains constantly on the run, but one day he tells this story to a bartender. Big mistake, cause when Robert returned to his apartment, Lombard is waiting for him there and said, "Good evening, friend," and the story ends just like that. Mr. Friend 123. Mr. Friend 123 is a Tumblr blogger who is known for a series of strange and mysterious posts that he makes. Some people speculate he is a serial killer with an obsession for mannequins, some say he's a crazy gooner, and some even say he isn't even real to begin with. Now I did research on this and found an actual Tumblr account called Mr. Friend 123, and it has a bunch of strange posts as well, but he's currently inactive because his last post was in December 9, 2020. Morbus.avi. The story of this follows a man who received a mysterious, allegedly sourced email containing a video file named Morbus.avi. The video shows a tall, plague doctor masked figure and his assistants performing literal surgery on a man who is still conscious, and they begin removing his organs, which are filled with black goo, and the doctors are calling it an infection. After watching it, the protagonist becomes very ill and it gets progressively worse. First it was nightmares, then it was hallucinations, and now it was vomiting the same black fluid from the video. One day he discovers his roommate Brian is missing and then finds him as the next subject in the video, where he is killed. The protagonist realizes the horrifying truth, which is that the video itself is the carrier of a deadly disease and he is infected from it, which means either he will die from infection or he'll die from getting killed by the doctors. Either way, he'll die. The story ends with him strapped to the same metal table and finally realizing that morbus is Latin for disease. Talk to Strangers. This is an Omegle horror story that isn't about a PDF file. It is about a girl who went on Omegle, and after a few normal interactions, she is connected to a pale thin man with an unsettling stare who remains silent but is smiling. She disconnects but is immediately matched with him again multiple times. The man then creates a crude mask from a paper plate, laughs maniacally, and types "wait" before taking a photo with a Polaroid camera. She goes downstairs only to discover a Polaroid photo on the fridge, which is a picture of her from behind sitting at her computer with the masked man visible in the mirror behind her. Secret Bar. This creepypasta follows the story of a man who receives an email inviting him to a hidden underground bar in New Orleans. He is guided by a mysterious woman named Jody, and they descend down an elevator that seems to go far below the city. Inside the secret bar, drinks are named after emotions such as regret, loneliness, damnation, etc. Each patron appears trapped in eternal suffering. He decides to drink a drink called Secrets, and the main protagonist learns horrifying truths about his life like family betrayals, future tragedies, inevitable blindness, and a lot more things he should have not known. He then realizes he was literally in hell, but then he manages to escape. The Town of Blanche. So this is another story that takes place in France. A family on a road trip stumbles upon a small unmarked town called Blanche. They get curious, but the town gets more and more weirder as houses appear in colors darker than any normal tone. The air smells like fish even though there are no fish there, and the local skin are colored deep blue. The family gets disturbed by this, so they get out of town. Later though, they hear very scary stories of Blanche that make them relieved that they had left the town while they still had the chance. Spectre. The main character recounts a childhood visit to England where inside a Gothic church, he noticed a tall looming figure in a black cloak and pale skin with black eyes. Their gazes meet and panic floods the main character to the point his heart starts pounding heavily, his limbs are freezing, but when he looks at the monster is gone. Years later, the main character recalls the memory and asks his cousin whether they attended the same church, but turns out he might have been schizophrenic because their memories doesn't match anything they remember. Sky Judge. Just to clarify, this is not the same as the Supreme Judge from the Maximum Judgment. This is actually a creepypasta story presented as a corrupted security video recovered from an airplane. The footage seems like a normal flight at first, but it becomes increasingly distorted and glitchy over time. Strange events start occurring, like a red flash outside even though they are thousands of miles up in the air, passengers and flight attendants flickering in and out of existence, and brief glimpses of violence, a hanging body, and a demonic face. A hooded entity then appears and moves throughout the cabin, and the video ends with the plane empty and consumed by an intense bright light. Generation loss. This is about a musician who creates a video to demonstrate the concept of generation loss by repeatedly copying a tape until the quality degrades over time to the point it's barely even recognizable. The video, which features footage of an intersection set with music, began circulating on 4chan. Those who watched it reported that watching the video in one sitting would cause a burning sensation in their skull, that they can hear disturbing screams in the music, and that they even saw a thin young boy staring from a window in the footage. Seer of Possibilities. This is a creepypasta story about a man named Jack who is contacted by a mysterious entity called the Seer through text on his computer screen. The Seer, who can see all future possibilities, asks Jack to perform small, seemingly harmless tasks promising rewards. Jack complies, and over the years he gains wealth, a promotion, and a happy marriage. However, he remains unaware that each task was a carefully orchestrated step in a grand manipulative plan. The story ends with the Seer revealing that every action was designed to psychologically break a random person, who then murders Jack's wife and is now coming for him. Jack, realizing that Seer gave him a happy life, ends up thanking Seer before he gets killed. Abaddon Tenebrae. This is another creepypasta story about a boy named Gerard who received a mysterious video game from his best friend named Humphrey. The game, called Abaddon 1, uses real-world locations and personal information to create this hyper-realistic experience where the player fights demons in their own neighborhood. Turns out, giving personal information to a cursed game is a stupid idea because after playing, Humphrey quickly falls ill and dies. Gerard later discovers that the numbers displayed in the game represent the days since his birth and that the days he has left to live. He also discovers that by accepting the game's license agreement, he has allowed a demon named Abaddon to choose a new, earlier death date for him. The only way to reverse this and get his original lifespan back is to defeat Abaddon in the game using a special bow found under a cross in his virtual house. However, Gerard fails and dies shortly after. Simple game. This creepypasta story is similar to Abaddon Tenebrae because it is about a 12-year-old boy who finds an unlabeled Game Boy cartridge marked free at his local game store. The game is a fun and simple game where the player must jump over blocks and pits. A key mechanic is a setting sun that lowers with each death, and a sign warns don't let the sun set. Out of curiosity, the boy lets the sun set, which results in his consciousness being transferred into the game. The story ends with the boy being trapped inside of the game where he is doomed for eternally. Skyrim's Secret. Another creepypasta story about a video game. A player explores outside Skyrim's map using console commands but discovers an abandoned location called Husfarthap Manor. Inside, he finds a woman in a blue gown who delivers cryptic messages about future events. After each visit, the women in the manor appear to age a lot. The main character soon realizes these aren't just messages but predictions because the terrible events that the woman spoke of, like being mugged, losing his job, his apartment burning down, and finally the death of his girlfriend, happen after he hears her messages. He discovers a book in the manor that lists these tragedies, with the fifth entry being that his own death is the final curse. The Forgotten Spider-Man. We all know the Spider-Verse has different Spider-Men like Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker, etc. However, this Spider-Man is created by a Reddit user named u/jellyfishasleep5920, and it's about a creepypasta story about a supposedly lost Spider-Man comic. In the alternate storyline of this lost comic, Spider-Man is struck with amnesia by Dr. Octopus and never recovers his memory. His friends, finding his Spider-Man equipment, mistakenly believe Spider-Man has kidnapped Peter Parker, leading Spider-Man to be hunted by the police. Dr. Octopus captures and imprisons him, and years later, when Dr. Octopus returns to his base, he discovers that the forgotten Spider-Man has become a malnourished feral creature that has been eating its own costume and body. The story ends with Spider-Man attacking and eating Dr. Octopus before turning to the reader and smiling at them. Twist ending. So there's this champion dog named Rexley, and he is a big mad dog that is undefeated in dogfights. Rexley faces off against another dog named Mr. Rabbit, and in a violent match for a bloodthirsty crowd, Rexley wins. After his victory, Rexley is led to his master's lavish dining room where the master's pampered pets eat from dishes at a long table. As a reward, the master gives Rexley a steak and tells him he can sit at the table. The story's twist ending is revealed when Rexley, who is supposed to be a dog, literally climbs onto the chair and picks up a knife and forks to eat his meal, which means the dog in the fighting pit are actually deformed humans that turned into dogs. Room 732. I think the Iceberg made a spelling mistake because when I researched for Room 732, I got a story for Room 733 instead. But anyways, this is a creepypasta story about two college freshmen named Becca and Lydia, who are assigned to dorm room 734, which is just right next to room 733, also known as the suicide room because of its dark history of unexplained suicides. The girls begin to experience terrifying events happening to them, like knocking from the shared wall, whispering, and the sound of the window in 733 opening and closing. After them doing some research, they discover the entity in the room is a manipulative, evil force that drives its victims to suicide. Despite their efforts to move, they keep getting delayed, so they are forced to stay there. The story ends when Lydia has to fight with her boyfriend, so she spends the night alone in the room and gets driven mad by the entity. Becca arrives too late because the moment she found Lydia, Lydia had already jumped to her death from the window. Skipper's Bin. Skipper's Bin is another creepypasta story about a series of 5 disturbing YouTube videos uploaded to a YouTube account named Dennis100 in late 2005 and early 2006. The videos all feature a skippers-bin.com watermark, but the website never even existed. It depicts a group of men in masks such as Gorilla, Dracula, and a paper bag, and they are all tormenting and abusing various victims. The content though quickly escalates because it could start from a harmless prank of a family eating Thanksgiving dinner, to scenes of a man being forced to dance on broken glass, a disabled teenager being assaulted, and another man being knocked out. The videos receive very few views though, and the accounts were eventually deleted or banned. The Blank Revolt. The Blank Revolt is about a global uprising of mannequins and other humanoid figures. The story is told from the perspective of one of the last surviving humans, who talks about how the mannequins, who are tired of being called creepy, first began moving quietly when no one was looking. The rebellion then quickly escalated into violent, coordinated attacks where they proved to be incredibly strong, fast, and smart, learning how to use weapons and even mimic human voices to lure victims. They evolved further as well, creating new monstrous forms from scrap materials and developing their own language. The story ends with humanity nearly extinct and the mannequins have fully replaced humans as the dominant species on Earth. Yeah, no, I don't know how to pronounce this. The story of this creepypasta is in Spanish, but luckily for you guys, I translated it. It's a mysterious and deadly website that was active in September of 2008. An anonymous email was sent worldwide containing a link to the site, and as you can see, this is the name. The website featured grotesque images and a video that was uniquely special to each viewer because it would show them their own violent and graphic death. After watching the video, thousands of young people who are unable to cope with the horrific vision of their future began ending themselves right now. The site was taken down after a month, but the anonymous creator later sent a threatening email to intelligence agencies worldwide promising to return back. Missing teeth. This is yet another creepypasta story about a man who begins to wake up with one of his teeth missing one by one with no pain or blood. Soon after, he discovers a pale, waxy-faced man with round glasses stealing his teeth in the night. So he follows this intruder to a distorted version of his own house, and in there, he sees the man using his teeth to construct a fleshy, half-formed replica of himself in bed. The story ends with the man losing all his teeth as well as his fingernails, toenails, and lips, realizing that the creature is being built from his own body parts. Stay in bed. So a man checks into a remote motel called the Stay-In after his usual hotel that he goes to gets overbooked. The clerk warns him of a strict curfew to stay in bed after midnight. However, he ignores the warning, so he encounters strange phenomena like a figure in the TV static and a pale woman in a nightgown outside his door. When he confronts the clerk, she explains that the motel is haunted by the ghost of a murdered girl and is still stalked by the spirit of Victor Galt, who is a handyman and a serial killer that would cut off his victims. He was killed on the property, but his ghost continues to drill holes in the walls to watch for victims. The story ends with the main character fleeing to sleep in his car after a horrifying realization that the clerk's legs and high heels were positioned slightly to her side, implying she is one of Galt's ghostly dismembered victims who is still working at the front desk. SpongeBob Hope is Lost. SpongeBob Hope is Lost is a lost episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. The story starts with an intern at the animation studio who discovers a finished but unaired episode titled Hope is Lost. He watches it and the episode is a horrific nightmare sequence where a demonic SpongeBob tortures and murders his friends in a burning hellish version of Bikini Bottom. The horror ends with SpongeBob being revealed as a vessel for a hellish demon which he calls Father. The entity speaks directly to the viewers and threatens that our world is next. The story ends with the intern walking out only to get possessed by the demon and has killed his friend, becoming its chosen slayer for our world. The Long Walk. Unlike most creepypasta stories, where it usually takes place in the present or somewhere in the past, this is set in a dystopian future where a brutal contest is held in a massive arena. The main character is one of the hundreds of competitors forced to participate in a deadly game run by the wealthy Vance brothers. The competitors are marched into the arena branded with a number and fitted with remote-controlled blindfolds. The event is fueled by a captured alien creature only known as It, and it decides who lives, dies, or fights. During the 300th event, the Master of Ceremonies announces that as a special reward, all the competitors will die. To the delight of the bloodthirsty spectators, the story ends as the blindfolds are finally removed and everyone realizes the horrific game has literally just begun. You'll never even know. This is a story from the r/nosleep subreddit by u/m59gar. This is a creepypasta story about a man who hacks into his neighbor's integrated smart home system. Initially curious, he discovers that many household devices have crude sensors that, when viewed together, reveal a horrifying entity with a pillowcase over its head lurking in the basement. This entity is invisible to normal cameras but can be detected through the combined sensor data. The main author watches as the creature sabotages the family by destroying a college acceptance letter and getting the father fired by sending compromising emails from his laptop. He realizes the entity is a specter of misfortune that feeds on or is enabled by the interconnected surveillance system itself. The story ends with the main character having a terrifying realization that his own home is filled with similar sensors and devices, implying that the same entity has been causing his own recent misfortunes and is most likely watching him as he is learning about it. Superman No More Heroes. No More Hero Superman is an evil version of the Superman character, kind of like how Herobrine is to Steve or how sonic.exe is to Sonics. This version of Superman basically lost his moral compass, so now he abuses his power and pretty much doesn't care about being a hero. Shut that damn door. It is a creepypasta story about a teenage boy who goes to live with a single aunt named Louise after his parents die. Her one strict rule is that every door in the house must be shut immediately after being opened or closed. However, his curiosity is piqued by a locked door in the basement, so he decides to explore it, and it leads to a sub-basement. When he finally sneaks down, he discovers it is more than just a root cellar, as it contains a tunnel-like room that feels ancient. At the end of this room is another door, but he feels an evil presence. He then realizes his aunt's obsession in closed doors is to actually just a desperate attempt to contain whatever is trying to come true from the other side. The Pancake Family. This is the last story, and it's from the r/no sleep subreddit by u/AA Peterson. A retired detective named Hobson Millgate is called back to a 20-year-old cold case involving the disappearance of the Driscoll family. A reporter gives him a confession letter that leads them to an abandoned industrial building. Inside, they discover the Driscoll family has been kept alive for 2 decades, and they are slowly getting crushed by a giant hydraulic press until their bodies are flattened into a single 2-foot-thick stack of used flesh. The family members, who were unaware of each other's presence, are found still alive but in constant agony but kept alive by a machine. The story ends with the detective performing a mercy kill on them because he doesn't want anyone to live like a human pancake. But then he realizes that the reporter who led him there does not actually exist, which makes the detective question everything.